My dear students, welcome to the course of Architecture and Town Planning. I am your teacher Ravindra Kumar Khyani, Assistant Professor, Department of Architecture and Planning, NIT University of Engineering and Technology, Karachi, Sindh, Pakistan. Today the topic of our discussion is layout of a street, road crossing and lighting. When we are designing a layout of a street, we always take care of the pedestrians and vehicular movement. And especially when road crossing is concerned, the pedestrians are very much important people. And lighting is also necessary for the night vision in the streets and roads. So let's begin our lecture, layout of street, roads, crossing and lighting. If we look at any medieval city, or old city, we will see what streets look like before the advent of the car. These were lovely small narrow lanes, intimate and undisputedly at human scale. We have many cities in Pakistan where we find streets of human interaction at social scale, especially in small cities. At present, streets are designed with the car in mind and at large scale for a fast speed. In modern world, the streets are made safer for the walking and biking by widening the sidewalks, turning car lanes into bike lanes, and slowing down the cars. This is the trend nowadays. A typically San Francisco street is from 60 to 80 feet or 18 to 24-meter wide as compared to medieval pre-car street, which is more like to be 20 feet or 3 to 6-meter wide. Now, as an urban designer, I prefer projects where large process of the land is taken and subdivided into blocks by introducing the streets. These streets will be a fresh look at the kinds of car-oriented roads that we are used to. Instead, we must design a street that prioritize the safety and comfort of the pedestrians. These projects gave me a chance to design streets that are just for people. Imagine that we make a people on these streets into narrow medieval style lanes that are intimate and human scaled. But even as we try to design streets that might not ever see a single car, we find that the modern street design has become so much more than just places for walking or driving. There are many things for socially minded designers to consider beyond the commonly talked about the pedestrian car dichotomy. Because we design the street for the pedestrian and cars intrude in it, or vehicular movement also become necessary for the streets. Street layout is a significant issue with respect to circulation, accessibility, and comfort for the pedestrian and vehicular movement. The relationship between the buildings, streets, and open spaces from the urban fabric that help a city to have a physical identity. The physical form and qualities of a place shape and are shaped by the way it is used and the way people and vehicles move through it. New developments help to create places that connect with each other, provide the right condition to walk, cycling, and use of public transport. People should be given priority over vehicles. This is the motto of the design of a layout of a street. Places that work well are designed to be safe and secure for everyone throughout the day and the night. And that's why the lighting is important. And when there is a vehicular movement, so road crossing becomes important. So in making a street layout, ask yourself the questions of high quality street design for human interaction. It is easily accessible and well connected to the public transport and community facilities and services or not. So this is a basic question while designing the layout of a street, road crossing and lighting. It is well laid out spatially to be used efficiently with safety, accessibility and user friendliness, whether it is available or not. So it is well integrated with and complement the neighboring buildings and the local area in terms of scale, density, layout, and access. Is there appropriate car parking space and well integrated with the high quality public realm? Means the place should be like having people a space for social interaction. For the street layouts, antiquity left two clear and easily understood models. First is the grid model. We design the streets in grid. And then there's a radial model. You already know about the grid and radial model. Let's look at the different layouts around the world. The old cities usually were roughly circular or rectangular in outline. Their clarity and functionality prompted their application in a variety of settings. The grid was used extensively in America, the uniquely American 1 mile grid and the radial plan appeared in some Europe's fortified cities and re-emerged infrequently in recent urban and suburban design. We have different kinds of patterns, the linear, the tree pattern, the radial, the cellular pattern, and hybrid pattern. The 20th century generated many street layout models such as linear, tree, radial, cellular, and hybrid. In all cases, these plans bear evidence of concern for the pedestrians to resolve conflicts between foot and the motorized travel. So for pedestrian and vehicular, there's always a, you can say, a debate that which should be preferred and what should be done. The above review of conceptual models of neighborhood, district, and city layouts reveals that the commonalities and differences in street pattern that seek a balance between wheeled and the pedestrian movement. One element on which there is general agreement is the use of T-junctions for traffic diminution. diminution. Another is the use of hierarchy of streets, beginning with heavily used intercity highways and permitting less traffic or progressively lower level streets. A third element that most models include is partial or complete separation of the footpaths from the vehicle routes. These paths are generally set in a common green space. In a brief look, the street pattern should be well differentiated and legible for the person who moves along it. By structuring it around a few unique elements, a sequence of views or events can be created for the motorist or the transit rider, which will give an underlying rhythm to this experience. A general rule for layout of the street, road crossing and lighting might be to provide a chain of landmarks or events so that from each point along the street pattern, some identifiable form is in view. Once that point comes into view, another then appears. The visual experience can also be made more vivid by kinetic experience of the road motion through bends, dips, and rises. So we can create these in the layout of the street. Similarly, the signing, the lighting, and planting can also be varied along the route. And general controls on height, setbacks, bulk, and spacing of the structures along the road also help create the continuity, legibility, and the attractive architecture on the street layouts. The application of the design principles for aiding orientation and shape, for instance, help people to organize their environments in their heads, to understand the behavior expected of them within their cultural frames, and to deal with the issues of control of space without ambiguity. Then it will become a true place. So mainly the layout of the street should be designed to create a true place for people, remarkable and unmistakable as given below. I'll just give you some examples. See some conceptual diagrams for the street patterns. What you can see in it. If you see in the upper top left figure, you see there is a street with vehicular movement and pedestrian movement, and there are height, there is a greenery. So street must have these elements. Similarly, the second figure in the middle or top is basically about the layout of the street where pedestrian and vehicular movement also incorporate the cyclist. Similarly, if you look at the upper right, you can say image, you can see that how the designers have designed the streets and the squares in integrated form. And on the lower left corner, you see the figure where the designer have tried to incorporate the various activities required in the streets to make it alive. Similarly, in the middle bottom picture, you can see that lighting is very important in the city, and especially the footpaths and the building facade must have an integration with the street layout. And finally, the lower right corner, the image shows you the street must have a hierarchy of building and beautiful facade with vehicular and pedestrian movement inside it. So let's go ahead and look at the further details of street design, layout of the street, road crossing, and lighting. Now let's discuss the principles for the layout of the street. First principle is that street is where the utilities go. As an engineer, you must know that utilities are very important. Ask any civil engineer and they will tell you a street is a highly engineered easement filled with variety of pipes, connectors, backflows, preventers, and other fiats of the modern science bringing us water, energy, and communication. Street provide a linear system for organizing this network of utilities, both horizontally, then there are required distances between different kinds of utilities, and vertically. For example, water in all its form need to flow downhill, even in these seemingly flat streets. So what is more, there are established, well-tested conventions for how to design these systems so that they operate everyday functions of a life without without us even noticing. We do not notice that what is going on in the street. We just pass through it. So, as an engineer, I just ask you to look at the streets in which you walk, and you will find that how much engineering is going on in the street, how much landscape is going on, how much architecture is going on within the street. Then the second principle is the street is where the utilities go. You must remember. If we imagine our carless streets, the old type of streets when the car was not invented, then how the street life was. The street life was with pedestrians, with social interaction, with food outlets, with so many different kinds of commercial activities that give a life to the street. So whatever form it takes, one has to manage the underlying system connected to this new street system. For example, there should be underground sewage system, the water supply system, the electricity system. These systems are very important. Furthermore, the street is where the utilities go. You just remember this principle. With new technologies, we are finding efficient ways to manage some of these utilities with less reliance on the grid. For example, there are now a handful of buildings that treat and reuse their own sewage. This black water is treated and the liquids are used for flushing and irrigation, while the solids are used by biodigesters for energy to help power the building. So these are new technologies which are coming up and it's in practice in the developed world. We can go even further and connect a few of these high performing buildings together into eco districts and find that amount of utilities that we need to accommodate in the streets might eventually decrease over the period of time. Look at this street. This is our imagined carless street, but there's no car, but pedestrian and the cyclists are using it. The principles for the layout of a street, and the street is also a drainage system for the engineer. When a civil engineer meets with the landscape architect, together they will begin to understand the demands on the streets for handling the stormwater. In fact, from engineering perspective, the principal purpose of a curb is not to separate pedestrians safely from the cars, but to control the flooding. The curb heights are set relative to the slope of the street and the size of the storm drain to prevent flooded sidewalks and buildings. An impermeable street and gutter actually stops water from soaking into the ground and forces it to move faster at a greater volume across the surface. The permeable paving works are to alleviate the flooding and reduce paved surfaces and increase plant areas even more effective. Many cities are retrofitting their streets. Many cities are retrofitting their streets with both permeable surfaces and rain gardens to help alleviate this problem. I have already shown you one picture of section of the street which have this kind of facility. Look at this street layout. This is again our reimagined carless street. The principle for layout of a street that the street is also an ecosystem for urban designer. We need to design our street in a more holistic way to handle water and plants with natural drainage and infiltration. The curves need to be designed with plant life in these street sections. In a city with an urban grid, the street takes up as much as 30% of the total area of the city, which represents a significant amount of land in the public realm. So it should be no surprise that the streets end up being where we find much of the biomass that is found in the cities in the form of street trees and sidewalk plantings. So beautiful old streets mostly have one thing in common. The beautiful old trees, because large, healthy, mature trees can make an amazingly lovable street, even if the roads and sidewalks have nothing special. Look at this image. The principle of layout of the street is the street is a public right of way. It should be the people should be given the equal opportunity with vehicles. You can see that 50% of the street is for pedestrians and 50% is for vehicles, and in which the cyclists are also involved. So this is our reimagined integrated street where we integrated all kinds of users in it. A street is publicly owned land in which the poor public or the Garib Awam has the right to occupy. In a democratic country, the streets are places where people come together to be seen as a group, to stand up and to be counted. We are seeing the importance of this fact in cities all over the world, where people are once more taking to the streets to find their voice. Protest is one of the important functions of the city streets. Even though at times this may conflict with other functions, such as moving traffic easily, it remains a critical and fundamental purpose of a city's streets. In developed world, you can find that people do protest within the streets. The urban streets are the places for urbanites who protest for their rights peacefully without disturbing the people and their properties. This is one of the important things. Well, now this is another sketch which I have drawn for you. For this is the layout of the street, road crossing, lighting. Here you can see that you find that there is 25 feet or 30 foot. I mean 25 feet clear street and 30-foot alley should be developed. And then the townhouses or maker space are developed. So when drawing a street plan, start with the center line and offset it on two sides. It is a line connecting two places with a certain width determined by an engineer who is trying to walk, making lanes for cars that will drive down this street and how many utilities will need to comfortably fit in here. Instead, we should think about the streets and all their various uses. For example, it is the places for gathering or wayfinding. It is living with nature and with each other. That is the main characteristics of a street. And the street layout must accommodate these primary basic functions. Now comes the road crossing. Road crossing is a significant issue of the urban context. People cross road, the birds cross road, the animal cross the road. And if these crossings are encroached by the vehicles, then people take their space back. And this is like the great thing that we are looking in these pictures. So road crossing, let's talk about road crossing. Road crossing may refer to as road intersections, railroad crossing, or level crossing, or pedestrian crossing, and strand road crossing. Here in the figure, you can find all these things which I have talked about. A road built over a level crossing make way for new walking and cycling paths. Pedestrian crossings and Well-lit pedestrian underpass connecting nearby aircraft station is one of the important aspects that is developed in the you can say advanced countries. Then in London, there is a special road markings. Road marking are also an important aspect when making the layout of road. So there is a road marking company that applied their trademark of bold colors and shapes the crosswalks instead of the zebra crossing between the traffic lights. Here you can see this example. So this is another way of designing or making the layout of street. The aim of their colorful crossing is to explore how everyday infrastructures in the city, such as pedestrian crossing, are perceived and can be transformed into a beauty. Here you can see the colorful crossing is the first project to be commissioned as a part of Better Bankside Avenue of Art, a long-term initiative that sees artists transforming the public spaces along the estate. If you go on the roads of, you can say, Karachi, you find that underpasses are sometimes given to the artist, and they do design different floral patterns and other patterns and basically improve the aesthetics of the area. All over the world, road crossing is taken as a pedestrian right, and road space and car drivers are made cautious about this pedestrian right. Here you can see there are new methods. What can transform a road into a place? The whole idea of taking the landscape over the road is very poetic. These designs achieve beauty through a simplicity, delightfulness that is quite inspiring because animals are also given the right to cross the road. And you see, two jungles are now there is a road network and there is a jungle, so you make the crossing for the animals that they can cross the road. Now, in Europe, the zebra crossing is a common kind of crossing facility. The wording pedestrian crossing is used in some international treaties on road traffic and road signs, such as Vienna Convention on Road Traffic and the Vienna Convention on Road Signs and Signals. The marked pedestrian crossing are often found at intersections but may also be at other points on busy roads that are unsafe to cross. The signalized pedestrian crossing clearly separate when each type of traffic can use the crossing. Vehicles should not encroach the pedestrian's space, and pedestrians, if find that vehicles are taking their space, they should react and basically make the car drivers to learn that the pedestrian also have the right to walk on the street. Then unsignalized crossing generally assist pedestrians and usually prioritize pedestrians depending on the locality. Pedestrian crossing created largely as a traffic calming technique when combined with refuge island and raised surfaces. Similarly, the special marking are often made on the road surface both to direct pedestrians and prevent motorists from stopping vehicles in the way of the foot traffic. If pedestrian has priority over vehicular traffic, then they have an incentive to use crossing or cross the road at any place. If pedestrians may not have the priority, then they commit an offense if they cross the road elsewhere or they jaywalk. Jaywalking is like when you are not crossing the road properly. Here you can see how the people movement is made easier in the developed world. Special markings are often made on the road surface both to direct pedestrians and to prevent motorists from stopping vehicles in the way of the foot traffic. Here you see that there are many varieties of signal and marking layouts around the world. Some crossings have pedestrian traffic signals that allow pedestrians and road traffic to use crossing alternatively. On some traffic signals, pressing a call button is required to trigger the signal and people then cross the road. Audible or tactile signals may also be included to assist people who have poor sight on the roads. In many cities, some or most signals are equipped with countdown timers to give notice to pedestrians and drivers the time remaining on the crossing signal. In places of very high pedestrian traffic, embedded pavement flashing light systems are used to signal traffic of the pedestrian presence. Now let's talk about the lighting. Lighting is one of the major aspects of the street layout. Rapid development of LED-based light sources and the related technologies revealed new perspectives for both design and control of outdoor lighting systems. Three properties of modern fixtures determine their high capabilities: extremely low onset time, dimmability, and highly customizable photometric solids. Since an LED source lacks technological limitation specific to high-intensity discharge luminaries, it may yield substantial energy and money saving by utilizing two areas. Building well-tailored, power-efficient installations to match the actual load configuration. Introducing adaptive telemetry-based control. This is like the latest technology which are being applied in the lighting of the street. According to a 2014 report published by the Northeast Group, over 280 million street lights are installed in the world, and this number is estimated to reach nearly 340 million by 2025. In designing street lighting, the focus should be made on the designing energy efficient lighting installation which comply with the mandatory lighting performance requirements and consume the minimal amount of power required to meet the requirements. Optimizing the power efficiency of outdoor lighting installation by applying a range of control mechanism is one of the basic objectives for solutions in the market, such as the City Touch by Philips or Light Grid by GE Lighting, OLED by Schroeder, and the many other companies such as Echelon and Desertec are preparing for the street lighting. In the area of lighting design, customized photometric computations are being developed. In lighting design, focus on optimizing uniformity and energy efficiency of the light installation is quite necessary. Optimizing power efficiency of a street lighting installation is done by improving the photometric design process. The problem arising around photometric computations is the computational complexity of the finding optimal configuration of lighting installation in terms of energy efficiency. In this aspect, we should follow the European lighting standard EN 13201-3 for Pakistan, which precisely define the methodology of the photometric computation. In this standard, three groups of photometric quantities are considered. First is the luminance of the road surface of the carriageway for the dry road surface conditions, which is described by the average road surface luminance, the overall uniformity and the luminance, and the longitudinal uniformity of the luminance. Then there is the disability glare, the threshold increment, the lighting of the surrounding ratio. In this process, initially, energy efficiency assessment is carried out. In the sequel, two types of lighting installation layouts are considered. First, a single two-lane carriageway with right-sided lamps mounted on poles located in collinear points referred to as single-sided light. A single two-lane carriageway with luminaries in staggered right arrangement. In both situations, uneven spaces pole and a variable width carriageway is dealt. Thus, lighting design for a street consider following steps. Luminaire arrangement either staggered right on the single-sided right. Road width assumed to be variant and defined by the normal distribution with both average and standard deviation. The luminaire spacing similar as road width defined by the normal distribution with average and standard deviation. The name of LED fixture with its photometric solid as provided by the specification used in the computation. For each fixture, what is nominal wattage and luminous flux by particular manufacturers. The number of lanes of a carriageway, fixture mounting, height, and inclination used in a given case. So road lighting design scheme must be robust such that viewers can feel easy to continue their movement on the road and through the road in a safe level. Road lighting scheme never brings a daylight appearance. Only moving objects must be caught in perfect visual sensation by the viewers due to a perfect design scheme. The roadway luminaires are mounted horizontally and thus have fixed vertical aiming. Roadway lighting luminaries have particular intensity distributions which are desired to light long, narrow horizontal strips on one side of the luminaire while minimizing the intensities on the other side of the luminaire. The intensity distribution up and down and the narrow strip are generally the same. Any fixed aim luminaire which does not have this type of intensity distribution is called an area luminaire. The main objective of road lighting design scheme are perfect visual sensation for the safety, illuminated environment for quick movement of the vehicles, a clear view of the objects for comfortable movement of the road users. The various types of lamps are used in road lighting luminaires. They are the high pressure sodium lamp, the metal halide lamp, the low pressure sodium lamp, the incandescent lamp. This was not recommended nowadays, but it is one of the efficient way of doing this. Then there's the LED, a light emitting diode, and CFL are used in the lanes or the street only, not widely. Five main factors to be considered in road lighting design scheme. One, proper luminance level, luminance uniformity, degree of glare limitation, lamp spectra for visual cell sharpness, and effectiveness of the visual guidance. These are the references for this lecture. I must end my lecture here. Thanks for watching. For lecture notes, visit my blog www.townplanninglectures.blogspot.com. My lecture is over now. May Almighty brighten your life. Wish you good luck and goodbye. Thank you very much.